Hello everyone, welcome to yet another class on The Bluest Eye, the first novel of Toni Morrison published in 1970. We have already had two sessions on the novel, one on the plot summary and the characters. In the second session, we tried to see the novel as a novel of black woman experiences. In this class, we'll try to analyze the themes and also the symbolism of the novel. Before we delve into the themes of the novel in detail, let's get familiar with some images. These are the images of actresses Jean Harlow, Ginger Rogers, and Shirley Temple. These were the popular actresses of Hollywood in 1930s and 1940s. And the other picture, the first one, is that of the candy of 1940s. Mary Jane was a candy. It was a sweet in 1940s, and there are episodes in the novel where Pecola goes to buy these candies again and again. And the image of the girl that you can see on the slide, along with Mary Jane, is the image that appears on the wrapper of the candy. So Pecola goes to buy the candy again and again so that she could get hold of this particular image again and again. She was addicted to this image. So as you can see very well, very clearly, all these are white actresses. All these were, they had blue eyes, and they were accepted. They were very popular actresses, and they were accepted as perfect models of beauty. So the one tragedy that happens to Pecola in this novel is that she was addicted to all these white models of beauty, and she wanted to be like them, quote unquote, be like them. So she was sort of, we can say, internalized this idea of beauty, the white notions of beauty. Now, naturally, the first theme that we discuss is beauty. The backdrop of this novel was the civil rights movement of 1960s. So, as it is familiar to you, very famous speech by "I Have a Dream." It was delivered in 1963. So, all this was part of this civil rights movement, and one of the slogans of this movement was "Black is beautiful." Now, Toni Morrison was very much skeptical about this particular slogan because she believed that this slogan was rather inadequate. It was not enough to wipe out, or it was not enough to deal with the long-term psychological effects of white racism on the black population, especially the black children. So a very simplistic slogan such as "Black is beautiful" will not simply do. That was her belief. So we can see that this novel was rather, it was produced out of her skepticism of this slogan "Black is beautiful." So in any case, it was very much clear that in 1960s it was there. Even today there is huge pressure on black children or black skinned people, whether it be African Americans or people of any races, in order to look, quote unquote, beautiful. So in order to look beautiful, they are expected to be, there is this economy of expectations. They were expected to conform with the white notions of beauty, the fair skinned and the lean figures. So Pecola was very much addicted to this white idea of beauty, and this addiction was, we can see that in the novel, that is another theme altogether. But we can see that in the novel, her desire for blue eyes was born out of her miseries in life. She wanted to have blue eyes because she believed that when she had blue eyes, she could only see beautiful things that will make her life rather happier, that will take her out of her miseries of a broken family, a fighting father, and abusing parents. So blue eyes will kind of save her. That was her belief. Her mother Pauline was a very bad-tempered woman, as we see in the novel. She abuses Pecola to the meanest level possible, and Pauline, there is a part of there is a part in the novel where Pauline becomes the narrator of the novel, and she narrates her past life experiences, especially the point where she meets her husband Charlie, and they fall in love with each other, they fall for each other, and they get married, and how the marital life turns bitter. When the novel opens, Pauline is also very much obsessed with this idea to look beautiful. Although she has a deformed foot, she has a broken marital life, and as a result of all this, we can see her finding refuge in movies. So Hollywood is a major, that is something almost like a character in this novel, because around this time in 1940s and 1950s, the United States was waging a war abroad, and it was going through a very stark financial crisis, financial and also political crisis. Now Hollywood was brilliantly and cleverly, it was covering up all these stark realities, and it was exposing a fantasy world for the population to watch and consume, and forgetting themselves and about the world in the fantasy world of Hollywood. So we can see Pauline, mother of Pecola, buys into this fantasy world very easily, and she even starts imitating her hair, like one of the actresses that we have already seen, Jean Harlow. In one of the occasions, she was watching a movie while eating a candy, and she loses a tooth. And with this incident, she is completely heartbroken, and she loses her attempts, various kinds of attempts in order to look beautiful, and she is losing it completely. And she finds a job at, interestingly, she finds a job at Fisher's. Fisher's is a very wealthy white family. She finds a job there. The reason being her affinity towards the white standards of living and the white standards of beauty. So she finds a job there so that she can be near a white household, quote unquote, the beauty, order, cleanliness, and the praise of the white world. So we can see in this novel black characters like Pauline and Pecola are in all for praise, and they are worshipping the white faces, white bodies, white figures, white household, all that is white. So why do they do that? Why is it that they cannot appreciate anything that they themselves are? They cannot appreciate anything that is black or African American. Why is it that? So we can see a very much visible entertainment industry. There is a culture industry such as Hollywood that is generating and propagating these images as standards of beauty, as perfect and as first class. So everybody is expected to conform with these ideas of beauty. And we can see that both Pauline and Pecola, they are kind of mentally declined, although they are not quote unquote mad or insane, but they are mentally declined to a very great extent, because they are almost blind, of not being able to see beauty in her world. So for Pauline, her world is completely devoid of beauty, that is completely ugly. Even Pecola, is the only worth of Pecola is her ugliness, and that is her only asset. So everybody considers Pecola to be ugly. And even other characters, even other African American characters, even other black characters, for example Geraldine, abuses Pecola for being ugly. As opposed to all these beauty worshipping from Pecola and Pauline, we can see a very different character in Claudia. Claudia, from very young age itself, hates white dolls and white actresses such as Shirley Temple and the Mary Jane Girl and Jean Harlow and Ginger Rogers and Greta Garbo. There are so many other white actresses who are referred to in this novel. So Claudia uh, hates all these actresses, and at one point she was gifted a white doll as a Christmas gift. Uh, and we can see Claudia, a very small child, a 9-year-old child. She dismantles uh, this doll in order to find the beauty, as she says. So Claudia did not agree with all these images. She hated Shirley Temple. She hated white dolls, especially. And even Claudia, at the end of the novel, she admitted that they were beautiful when we stood astride her ugliness, and she feels guilty about it. But she avoids Pecola. So, Claudia, although she was a rebel, although she was a very confident and very logically thinking girl, when she grows up, and when incidents like when Pecola gets raped, when and Pecola is pregnant with her father's child and the baby is dead, when these things were happening around her and when they were growing up, Claudia was slowly learning to kind of you know standing aloof from Pecola, and she was standing beside the white norms of beauty. So the kind of rebellion that we see in Claudia when she was a child is no more when we see her as an adult narrator of the novel. So what happens with their friendship? She avoids Pecola. Pecola is avoided by Claudia. So at the end of the novel, we see that Claudia is living a life that is something like a middle class life, or that is something that she is trying to emulate with the white middle class norms of life. And where is Pecola? Pecola is insane. She is mad, and she is walking along the streets of the vicinity, and Pecola is grabbing at the garbage, different kinds of garbage, and she was searching for her baby, perhaps. So Claudia is watching all this, and she's avoiding Pecola. Now what happens is, in one way or the other, the culture industry is forcing the black population to conform with the notions of white standards of beauty. And characters such as Pecola and Pauline are tragic victims of this reality. Then another theme of this particular novel is that this can be seen as a novel of coming of age. So the term Bildungsroman must be familiar to you. So this novel can be considered as a Bildungsroman novel. One critic, Susan Blake, calls it the microscopic examination of the point where sexual experience, racial experience, and self-image intersect. Now there are mainly there are three child characters in the novel. The central character being Pecola, and there is Claudia, and there is Frida, Claudia's sister. There are other minor characters who are children, like the junior, the son of Geraldine. That sort of characters are also there. So this novel is when the novel opens, all these children are around 9-10 years of age, and at the end of the novel we can see the narrator, the Claudia, as an adult. So many years pass through this particular narrative, and there are different kinds of incidents happen in the novel, which can be considered as different kinds of markers or milestones in the process of coming of age. The important thing being Pecola's first menstruation episode, where the girls are, they see the blood and they try to figure out what is happening to them, and at the end of it, they realize what it is, and um, also they even come to conclusions such as, now that you're menstruating, Pecola can conceive, she can have a baby, and even the other girls, Claudia and Frida, they conclude that in order to have a baby, you just uh, menstruating is not just enough. You need to have somebody who is loving you. Now Pecola is asking this question, how do you do that? I'm quoting from the novel. She is asking, how do you do that? I mean, how do you have how do you get somebody to love you? This is the question that Pecola is asking. How do you get somebody to love you? So that is indicative of her complete absence of this idea of love, care, affection, intimacy, softness in her life. So she was having a tough experience in life. Her this coming of age, so called, this idea of coming of age, was it was not romantic, it was not a fantasy, it was a cruel world, it was a tough world. A father, a very drunkard father, and also a mother, a very short tempered, very bad tempered mother, who hates her children, who hates the marital life, who worships the white standards of the white household, the fishers, the fisher girl. So Pauline is a character who adores the fisher girl and abuses her own child, Pecola. So that kind of a mother she has. So Pecola is craving for love. She's craving for care and softness and affection. And the only source of love that she has in the novel are the three prostitutes. We have already discussed them in the other class. So the three prostitutes who are staying in that particular surrounding, they were the only characters who loved them. Apart from Claudia and Frida, these prostitutes were the only characters who loved them. Now, uh, Pecola is awakening to the truth about her, quote unquote, truth about her ugliness and her initiation into adulthood. So, the initiation into adulthood is a painful experience for Pecola. But it was a different journey for Claudia, as we can see from the novel. She is confident, she is rebellious, but that is the result of her having very considerate, very cooperative, and very loving parents, as we can see. Although the family of Claudia and Frida, the Mactiers, although they were not very rich, they had this bond of love in between them, which bound them together, which gave Claudia and Frida the courage and the boldness to think and to question the existing stereotypical representations of black people, as well as the normative representations of white figures as beautiful. So Claudia, especially Claudia, she questioned all these. So her coming of age is different. The other child character the other child characters in the novel, such as Junior. So Junior is another victim. So especially Toni Morrison refers to characters such as Geraldine and Junior in one of the interviews, where she says that these characters, they buy into the fantasy of the white beauty, and also they internalize this idea. So this unalterable idea of their immutable inferiority is something that these people internalize. So in order to look beautiful and in order to be on par with the white population, the only option that they have is to conform with the notions and the rules of the white lives. So Junior is such a child who is brought up by Geraldine. He is even a cruel child, because he is cruel to Pecola, because he kills the cat and he throws the cat at Pecola and he blames Pecola for killing it. And Geraldine abuses Pecola verbally. And he does all these things because he is given these ideas by his own mother, that black population, they are ugly, and what we have to stand beside is the white population. We should be like them. So these are the ideas given to the character Junior. And again, some references to the coming of age of Pecola's father Choli are given. Especially there is one episode where Choli, he was brought up by his own aunt, and after his aunt's death and after the funeral, there is an episode where Choli and one of his he had a girlfriend at that point of time. They go into the woods and they start having sex. They start making love. At this point, two white characters, cops, police officers perhaps, or robbers, they interfere and they humiliate these two black characters. The girl lying underneath and Choli lying above her and making love. So they humiliate, and Choli, he takes up his entire hatred upon the white girl. So this is the coming of age of Choli, like Pecola, was also a very humiliating experience because of the white population's ill treatment and ridicule of his existence as a black person, his identity as a black person. And another very strong central theme of the novel is race and racism. So in the whole novel, there is this white racism that makes black people inferior, that represent black people as inferior, and also that makes them suffer physically and more catastrophically psychologically. So there is this particular episode in which Pecola, she encounters certain white characters. One of the episodes is that she goes to there is this white character Yakubowski. He's actually an immigrant in America, but he's a white character. So Pecola goes to Yakubowski's store. He is a storekeeper in order to buy the candy Mary Jane, and Yakubowski avoids Pecola completely. He is unwilling to see Pecola. So Pecola turns invisible in front of the white characters. So there is this, he even look at the details of Pecola's hands and fingers, and he explains them as dirty and ugly. So he hesitates, and he is completely, and he has this very sharp aversion to Pecola, and Pecola turns invisible. So one would we have already discussed this particular idea of invisibility in our previous class, where we discussed the other novel, The Invisible Man. And also there is this racism comes alive in the first sexual encounter of Choli with his lover Darlene, and two characters, and it was dark, and the two white male characters arrive with the torchlight, and they point the torchlight on Choli's buttocks and his pull down pants, and they make fun of him and they ridicule them, and when Choli is about to stop making love, they force him to make love in front of them for their amusement, for their sheer pleasure of watching a black man making love to a black woman in front of their eyes. So Choli is absolutely humiliated, he is absolutely ill-treated, and he takes out his anger and hatred on Darlene. So this was the first sexual encounter of a black man is very much entangled with racism, that is completely humiliated with racial forces, as we can see. And for Peccola and Claudia and Frida, there is this particular character called Maureen Peel. Maureen Peel is a white character, and uh, and in the beginning they had friendships. Maureen Peel is a new student at their school, and in the beginning they had some sort of friendship, but then uh, even Maureen Peel even rescues Peccola when she was picked on by certain boys, a group of boys. But then later she turns against Peccola, and she screams at Peccola saying that I am cute and you are ugly. So when Maureen Peel says that I am cute, Peccola has the impression that she was meeting a different person who is cute, and which in turn makes Peccola not cute or ugly. Even there is racism, there is references to racism that exists even among black people. The example would be the character Geraldine. Geraldine is one character who embraces white middle class respectability, the idea of white middle class respectability, that consists of some sort of white collar job, a home, and some sort of distance that she is trying to keep with the other black population, the other black characters in the novel. So basically that is the internalization of white notions of not only of beauty but also of life. So Geraldine is such a character, and she has this distinction between niggers and colored people, uh, because niggers, according to her, niggers are very dirty and niggers are uncultured, they can even be criminals, and colored people are, you know, educated, cultured black people. So she has this racial stereotypical representations even of black people, so she's cherishing all these representations. So these representations, these distinctions are actually the products of a white male kind of a discourse, and she is buying into all these discourses, she is internalizing all these discourses. So there is an episode where Peccola Junior, her son, Junior is Geraldine's son. So Junior tricks Peccola into into their home, and finally he gets angry with Peccola. He kills the cat and he throws the dead cat on Peccola, and finally he blames Peccola for killing the cat. All these are lies, and Geraldine arrives and she screams at Peccola. So for Geraldine, Peccola is this ugly black piece of life. So she screams at Peccola, "Get out, you nasty, ugly black bitch!" So these are racially lauded words. These are uh, most humiliating words beyond all boundaries, beyond all borders. Now, she screams at Peccola all these things, and we must consider the fact that both the characters, both Geraldine and Peccola, are black characters, and one black character is abusing another black character as ugly black bitch, because Geraldine believes that she is some sort of black character who is different from other black characters because of her affinity, because of her closeness with the white norms of life. So race and racism works, and that is a core idea of this particular novel, and it works in various forms in The Bluest Eye. We can see that in the life of Charlie, we can see that in the life of Pauline, because Pauline is all for the white white home and the white child and the white household. So, and also we can see that working in the life of Peccola, and that is crushing the identity formation process of Peccola. So Macteus, Claudia and Frida, they had some sort of boldness to think against these racial prejudices, but Peccola was a neglected character. She was an abused character. Everybody was convinced of her worthlessness. So Peccola was that kind of a character. So it did not give her any scope. It did not give her any space to think against the existing norms race and racism. So she believed in her inferiority. So she was more than anybody else. Pecola herself was convinced of her inferiority and her worthlessness. So the only hope that she had was to have blue eyes. And not only the blue eyes, by the end of the novel she believed that she had the bluest eyes possible. So these are the ways in which race and racism works through in the novel. And other themes that we have already discussed are internalization of this white idea of beauty. By now I hope it is very much clear to you. And also the idea of invisibility. We must keep in mind this idea of invisibility of Pecola, because there are other works of literature, especially the other novel, The Invisible Man. We have already discussed that in the previous class. So these are the other themes of the novel. And about the structure and point of view of the novel, as we have already discussed, and as you already know by now, the novel is divided into 4 seasons. The 4 seasons, the division of the novel and the division of this particular incidents into 4 seasons is very much appropriate, because children, they measure time in terms of season. When the sun comes up in the sky, or when the rains fall, when the snow falls, then when tree leaves fall, these are when winter comes, when spring comes, summer comes. So these are the incidents that stay alive in children's mind. And the protagonists and the central characters of this particular, or the main focus of the novel, is on the 3 children, Claudia, Frida, and especially Pecola. So the division of the novel into 4 seasons is very much appropriate. And also there is this underlying idea of growth both in nature, in terms of plants, and also in terms of human beings such as Pecola and Frida and Claudia. And also the fall of not only of leaves in autumn, but also of characters, the tragic fall of characters such as Pecola. The whole novel is in the form of a flashback, in the form of a memory by an adult Claudia. So when the novel opens, so especially when the novel comes to an end, Claudia is an adult narrator. So which means so many years have gone by, and this adult narration of Claudia, a flashback, that is interspersed with narrations of child Claudia. And also there is this narration of the author, the omniscient author, and also there is a narrative, a very small narration of Pauline, of her childhood experiences, of her meeting with Charlie, things like that. And the adult Claudia reflects as how they all made Pecola into a scapegoat. At the end of the novel, Claudia has this gift of reflection, and she turns back into the past, and she recollects all the different kinds of incidents that happen in the life of Pecola and also their lives, and she forms a very clear idea as to how the whole neighborhood made Pecola into a scapegoat, a victim. And when memory goes in both ways, to and fro, the thinking pattern, not only the thinking pattern but also the language itself changes when the narrative shifted from past to present. And the setting of the novel is Lorraine, a place called Lorraine. It's a northern region of the US in 1940s is the time. Toni Morrison also grew up in the same place. In the novel, we could not see so many white characters. White characters are present in the backdrop. Actually, the fishers are there. The fisher girl is there, and also characters such as Jakubowski are there. But the focus of the prime focus of the novel is on black characters. The symbolism of the novel. Symbolism. There are many symbols in the novel, as we can see. There are Hollywood icons of 1940s such as Jean Harlow, Greta Garbo, Ginger Rogers, and especially Shirley Temple as perfect models of beauty. So all these images are online. You can Google them. So they are considered to be the ideal models of beauty. So Pecola and a large portion of the black population, represented by characters such as Geraldine and Junior, and also Pauline, they are in constant psychological pressure and trauma of not being able to conform with the white models of beauty and not being able to be like them. So although Pauline tries to wear her hair, make her hair like Jean Harlow, she could not continue it because she is finally convinced of her ugliness, and Pecola is also convinced of her ugliness, so that that drives her insane. So we have already seen that Pauline is also to a certain extent, we can call her an insane person or a mentally declined, deteriorated person, because she is unable to see and perceive beauty in her life. So perhaps there is beauty in her life, but she cannot see it. She sees beauty only in the fisher girl, not in her own child, Pecola. So this is a very a degenerated kind of a mental a kind of a mindset. And also another symbol that we can see in the novel is marigold and the unyielding earth. Marigolds are mentioned at the beginning of the novel, and also marigolds are mentioned at the end of the novel. So the reference to marigold is something that gives the novel a profound depth of feeling as you read through the novel. So marigold are plants. They also symbolize the girls, the children of the novel, Pecola, Frida, and Claudia. In another level, marigolds also stand parallel to the unborn baby of Pecola. So when Claudia and Frida come to know that Pecola was pregnant with her father's child, they also learned that nobody wants the baby to be born. Nobody wants the baby to live. The only two characters are these two girls who want the baby to live. So what do? They plant marigolds, and they chant prayers over it. They cover the marigold seeds with soil, and they chant prayers over it. They pray for the baby. They pray for the baby to live, to be born good and to live. But as we all know, the baby is dead, and Claudia at the end of the novel thinks now that perhaps the earth itself was unyielding in 1940s. So the unyielding earth is another symbol that stand for the inhospitable, the unfriendly, and also the cruel world in which the black children such as Pecola, Claudia, and Frida, they are born, and they try to live on. So the marigolds, it did not sprout, as we know from the novel. It did not sprout, such as the dreams of Pecola, such as the baby of Pecola. So all these things, the marigold and also the unyielding earth, they stand for so many things, and they are very strong symbols in the novel. Another form of symbolism of the novel is seasons. So the novel begins in autumn. In autumn, they make different kinds of beginnings, such as the meeting of girls. Pecola goes to McTeer's when she was quote unquote put outdoors by her parents, and they meet, they befriend, and also Pecola's first menstruation. So all these are beginnings in their lives. Next come winter, in which there is absolute barrenness. There is this barrenness of the winter, because in winter they meet Maureen Peel, and Pecola is also terrorized by Geraldine for, as "get out of my house, you ugly black bitch." These are the words that Geraldine throw at Pecola, and Pecola is terrorized. And these things happen in winter, which is very much correspond to the barrenness of winter. In spring, again the decline and the moral corruption continues in the next division, in the next section of the novel, that is Spring. In Spring, Mr. Henry Washington abuses Frida. He invites Frida into his room. He's a white man, so he invites Frida into his room and he fondles the breasts of Frida. And Mr. McTeague, Frida's father, comes to know about it and he beats up Henry Washington. So again, this is some kind of an awakening, so some kind of a spring, some kind of a germination. So in the course of Frida's coming alive to her, to her sexual awareness, that is very much thwarted by, that is very much subverted, that is very much dangerously risked by the intervention of Henry Washington. Then also in the same season, Spring, which is supposed to be a very beautiful season of flowers blooming and fruits ripening and birds chirping, supposedly very this particular image of children running around and playing and having a good time. Pecola is abused by her mother. At Fisher's household, she is abused and she is preferred over the Fisher girl. And also in this particular section, she gets tragically raped by her father. In summer, which is the shortest division of this particular novel, she goes insane. So in the symbolism and of the seasons in this novel works in very interesting ways, where in which the for each season there are special moods traditionally attach certain moods to each season. For example, spring is a season of happiness, and summer is also a season of happiness. So many colors and songs in nature. But then this is contrasted. This is very much opposed to the plight of Pecola, where in spring she gets raped, and in summer she goes insane. So we can see that even black lives, or the lives of black children in nature, they go very much against the rules of nature, or even the nature goes against the lives of black children, or some sort of unfavorable nature is something that we can see in The Bluest Eye. And also another powerful symbol of the novel is Dick and Jane's story that we can see in the beginning. So Dick and Jane's story was originally used as a textbook in 1940s, and some critics observe that the three stories that we can see in the beginning, the first story is grammatically perfect story, second story is the version of the story which does not have any punctuations, full stops, commas, and the third story is the same story without any spaces, without any punctuations. So they represent the three lifestyles. The first story, the perfect story, represent the lifestyle of the white family, such as the Fisher family. Second story, without punctuations but somehow able to make the meaning, represent the story of McTeague. Although they are economically very poor, they have this bonds of love woven among themselves, the mother, the father, Claudia, Frida, and parents are always there for the children's protection and care and loving them. So the second story stands for them. And the third story, without punctuation, without spaces, completely meaningless, and it is anarchy and it is insane. So that parallel and that stand for the tragic story of Pecola's family, Breed Love. Parents always fight and they make love in front of the children. Pauline always abuses Pecola, her brother running away, and Charlie comes drunk, always beating his wife, and they always fight and quarrel, and Pecola is always terrorized by parents' fights, and she is praying to God to give her blue eyes so that everything around her turns beautiful and fair. or rather she would not be able to see anything. She goes completely blind to all these miseries. So Dick and Jane story is, we have already discussed the symbolic significance of Dick and Jane story in the previous class. They represent the kind of meaningless narration which makes sense only for the white family, but to a black family this kind of story is completely meaningless. So these are Dick and Jane story with a girl with a family, father, mother, friend, dog. The beautiful household of Jane is something that the black children can never imagine. They can never relate themselves to these kinds of stories, but they are forced to read such stories and they are forced to emulate such stories. So there is this gap of even of narration that happen in Dick and Jane story. So that is also one of the perfect symbols in the novel. So with this, I think we have already discussed the plot of the character, the plot and the characters and the themes and the woman experiences, and finally the symbolism of the novel. I hope the novel is very much clear to you now. So go through all these presentations again and again, and also when you read the novel it becomes more clearer to you. Thank you.